What's good, everybody? Today we're going to explore a controversial chapter in U.S. immigration history, Operation Wetback. A mass deportation program launched in 1954 that targeted Mexican immigrants, often without regard to their legal status. Let's delve into the historical context, the implementation of the operation, and its lasting impact. In the early 20th century, Mexican immigrants played a vital role in the U.S. economy, particularly in agriculture and railroad construction. During World War II, the Bracero Program was established to address labor shortages by bringing Mexican workers to the U.S. on temporary contracts. However, by the 1950s, concern about illegal immigration and the exploitation of Mexican laborers led to calls for stricter enforcement of immigration laws. Politicians and labor unions argued that undocumented workers were taking jobs from Americans and driving down wages. In response, the U.S. government launched Operation Wetback. In 1954, a massive deportation campaign aimed at removing Mexican immigrants, many of whom had entered the country without documentation. Operation Wetback was led by the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, and involved coordinated raids across the country. Border Patrol agents, often working with local law enforcement, targeted Mexican communities, workplaces, and public spaces. Thousands of people were arrested and detained in overcrowded facilities before being deported to Mexico. Many were transported in buses, trains, and even ships under harsh conditions. In some cases, individuals were deported without proper legal proceedings and families were separated. The operation was named after the derogatory slur, Wetback, used to describe Mexican immigrants who crossed the Rio Grande. This name reflects the dehumanizing attitudes that underpinned the campaign. Operation Wetback resulted in the deportation of over 1 million people, including many who were U.S. citizens or legal residents. The operation was criticized for its heavy-handed tactics, racial profiling, and disregard for due process. Mexican-American communities were deeply affected by the raids, which created an atmosphere of fear and mistrust. Many families were torn apart and some individuals were deported to regions of Mexico where they had no ties or support. Mexican-American communities were deeply affected by the raids, which created an atmosphere of fear and mistrust. Many families were torn apart and some individuals were deported to regions of Mexico where they had no ties or support. While the operation was intended to curb illegal immigration, it did little to address the underlying economic factors that drove migration. The demand for cheap labor in the U.S. continued and many deported workers eventually returned. Operation Wetback remains a controversial and painful chapter in U.S. history. It highlights the complexities of immigration policy and the human cost of enforcement measures that prioritize expediency over fairness. The operation also underscores the long history of racial discrimination in U.S. immigration enforcement. Its legacy can be seen in modern debates over border security, deportation, and the treatment of undocumented immigrants. In recent years, there has been growing recognition of the need for comprehensive immigration reform that addresses the root causes of migration and the respects for the rights and dignity of all individuals. Operation Wetback challenges us to reflect on the values of justice, fairness, and humanity in shaping immigration policy. It reminds us that the way we treat the most vulnerable among us defines who we are as a nation. I thank you for joining me on this journey through history. Let's remember the lessons of the past as we work toward a more just and inclusive future. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep making history. I'm Daryl Omar, and I'll see you soon.